Great. Well, good morning and welcome to this great gathering this morning. My job is to just get you all started and introduce myself. My name is Mike Glavin, and I am the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development, one of the longest names of any department that I'm aware of in government. It's great to welcome all of you here this morning. And in addition to doing that job, which I've just done, I did want to add a couple of notes of thanks. First of all, to all of you for joining us. We hope that you will find this to be an informative and productive session as we start to talk about new opportunities. Putting this together today has been led by Tom Galligani, our Director of Economic Development, and his team. And you'll be meeting Tom and members of his team throughout the day. I want to do a shout out to them. Also, I want to thank Burns and Levinson and their great team of folks. Again, you'll meet them during the day. They've been our consultants on this. And Anatoly Darov, Matt Fair, and Bill Lyons, who are here, and we probably have met some of them already, but they will be adding their talent to the discussion today, and we look forward to their participation and thank them and their group at Burns and Levinson for the work that they've done to pull us together. Also, you'll be meeting, and I know the mayor will mention, our elected officials, both here at the local level and our relationship with the state level and the Baker administration, and we really thank their interest in this topic, and we look forward to their continuing support. We have a number of municipal government agencies here and represented by directors of those agencies. They'll participate in the panels. We have some guests who are in the private sector who will also participate in those panels, sharing with you insights and ideas that they have that they're hoping that you'll be able to work with them and with us in forwarding those ideas. I also want to give a very special thanks to Partners Healthcare. It is an amazing facility, but even more importantly, the identity of their corporate body here in Somerville is an extraordinary event in our history, bringing the state's largest employer here to our city, and we thank them for today, but also for their incredible investment in the assembly area. As far as the topic goes, P3 is really an incredibly growing concept, and I think as we see from signals in Washington and across the state of the country, Massachusetts should not be behind, but should be a leader, and of course Somerville, we hope always to be a leader in efforts that are innovative, but not for innovation's sake alone. Innovation is great. It's kind of like design. It's intuitively helpful to all of us to think creatively and to share thoughts and entertain each other with ideas and concepts. But if it isn't applied, if it isn't helping people on a daily basis, if it isn't expanding our economy, helping our housing, and making life better for our residents, then it's really an unfulfilled opportunity. The person who I'm introducing next works to make sure that those goals and objectives are met every day, and he does it with his vision, his commitment, and his leadership, and his partnership with our Board of Aldermen and others. And I would like to welcome to the roster Mayor Joe Curtatone to welcome you now. Thank you very much. Big staff.
Good morning. Hey, and welcome to Somerville. I want to thank Mike Glavin for that introduction. My name is Joe Curtatone. I have the honor and privilege of being the mayor of this incredible community and to help host you all here today. And we're happy to have you all here in Somerville. I do want to take a moment to recognize and thank my colleagues here at the local and state level, representing the Board of Aldermen, and some may come here throughout the morning, but present at this time is the Ward 2 Alderman, Ms. Mary Ann Houston. I want to give a round of applause. And the Ward 5 Alderman, Mr. Mark Niedergang. And we are all deeply interested in how we think about creative and innovative ways to deliver projects or partner on development projects, and they are very much keyed into this in their roles on the Board of Aldermen. This year, Somerville, as you can gather by the logo, celebrates its 175th birthday. I don't know if you know, we were part of Charlestown. Then they started to become too urban, and we left. But from our early history as a manufacturing and industrial center to the hub for innovation and creativity we become today, Somerville has been a a special place with some pretty special people. But I assert we get better every day. It's like a fine wine. This city is on the precipice of some really exciting transformations. We're undergoing historic expansion of mass transit with the Green Line extension. Our Assembly Row and Union Square neighborhoods are seeing unprecedented investments. We're breaking ground on a new high school. We're taking on ambitious community-driven climate change plan. In fact, to be carbon neutral by 2050. And every bit of it is moving us closer toward our community's forward-looking summer vision goals. So since its adoption in 2010, where we defined not just what we wanted to build, but who we wanted to be, summer vision has been the compass that really guides our decisions and our systems. And this 20-year community-driven and supported comprehensive plan calls for, among other things, a certain amount of progress for a net new 30,000 new jobs, 125 acres of new public accessible open space, and in the most densely populated community in New England with more than 80,000 people and 4.1 square miles. That is an invaluable asset. More than 6,000 new units of housing with 1,200 being permanently affordable. Increased access to public transportation. In fact, our mobility goals call for more than 50% of new vehicle trips to be bicycling, walking, or public transportation. And substantial new development in our transformative areas, like in the Assembly Square area. So achieving the goals laid out in Summer Vision ensures our residents have greater opportunities to access quality education, careers, and housing choices, and delivering the infrastructure that allows us to make those lofty goals a reality remains a top priority for my administration, for the Board of Aldermen, for this community. So yes, there have been and will continue to be obstacles. But luckily, as a place known for innovation, which Somerville has become in out of the box, or I like to call abnormal thinking, we welcome and embrace creativity. So we know we must explore options that may not be considered traditional, because these infrastructure investments are critical to foster job and housing creation, increase our tax base, create a robust community and economy, and provide really new opportunities for our residents. Whenever possible, we have sought out new ideas and innovative approaches to meet the city's infrastructure needs. And we know from recent successful experiences that creating a working partnership with the private sector and private interests can lead to optimal results for both parties and our residents, and to achieve community goals. We don't have to look any farther than where we are right now. We're in the Assembly Row District and Assembly Square. We have an incredible partner, one of the best partners any community can have in Federal Realty Investment Trust. And they've been exceptional in redeveloping Assembly Row and helping us to achieve our goals as communities and bringing new jobs and new tax revenues to the city. And we partnered with FRIT to fund the Orange Line Assembly Station with a public-private partnership with Federal Realty, the Commonwealth, using their I-Cubed funds, their infrastructure investment incentive funds. We got the first MBTA subway station built in more than a quarter century when the Orange Line station opened up here at Assembly. In fact, we can fold in the federal government, because the combination of more than $133 million in public money from the Commonwealth, from the City of Somerville and our district improvement funding, from the ARA funds that came in to build the Spine Road, leveraged more than $1 billion of just initial investment on this side of the main roadway. And that's just one example. You'll learn more about other successful P3s in Somerville later on today. Producing well-planned, well-maintained infrastructure plays a vital role in supporting a high-quality standing living for all. You're in that business. Many of you know that. Something we are deeply committed to in providing to our residents here in Somerville. And part of our overarching goals we want to achieve. Cities and towns really across the region and the country have similar goals and really face similar challenges. How do we deliver? I mean, how do we finance? How do we execute? And simply put, most cities and towns have limited public resources and budgets to finance the projects that will move us and ultimately the Commonwealth and the nation forward. So triple Ps, public-private partnerships, and other forms of partnering and investment really can change this dynamic and allow us a real creative resources to achieve the goals we all envision. For us, it comes back to the Summer Vision Plan, and private investment provides us with exciting opportunities to deliver on those goals and bring a better quality of life to everyone in our community. This knowledge, along with our recent successes, has inspired us to look to the private sector for current capital projects and innovation infrastructure priorities. Today, you'll hear from our city staff and other important stakeholders who will discuss capital projects and innovation infrastructure priorities. They'll dive into the details on how we plan to work with you to develop underutilized sites and create additional much-needed housing throughout the city, and also how we're looking to forge new partnerships to help the city and our residents capitalize on emerging technologies, achieve our net zero carbon emissions goals, and really explore new creative forms of mobility. The projects and topics that will be covered today offer really a pivotal generational opportunity to redevelop, to enhance and improve parts of the city in partnership with you in a way that will leverage your ingenuity and capital, maximize our collective strengths, and result in far-reaching benefits for everyone involved. So we stand ready, city, our community stands ready to explore partnerships with you, and are looking forward to your feedback as we move forward towards creating a comprehensive public-private partnership strategy, identify one or more projects, and proceed with procurement. And we stand ready to work with the Board of Aldermen here in Somerville, as well as our colleagues and state leadership, including Governor Baker, Secretary Ash, and Assistant Secretary Vega was here today, Speaker DeLeo, Senate President Rosenberg, and particularly our local state delegation to implement the steps necessary to achieve any one or more of these really critical projects. But before I wrap up, I have to thank some people who made this event possible. And once again, join me in giving a round of applause to Partners Healthcare for graciously hosting us today. Great facility. By the way, this room more than doubles in size. I've never seen, I commented on this earlier, the ingenuity and creativity in creating the workspace that's here. If you've ever a chance to tour, this is really 2 buildings, and the execution of this project was exceptional. We're so proud to have the Commonwealth's largest employer right here in Somerville. I also want to thank the Somerville Board of Aldermen, and we've also been joined by the Vice President of the Board. Help give her a round of applause, Tatiana Ballantyne, Ward 7 Alderman. I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for continuously working to push for creative ways to deliver the city's capital improvement plan. Believe me, they're on it. They want to see it long term, as is their role 5, 10 years out, and how we're going to deliver on it. We have priorities. We know they're at the top of the list. We have priorities we know we're going to pay for through traditional bonding. Then we have other priorities we'd like to get on there, our wish list, and how we find creative ways of financing those priorities is critical to our overarching success. Thank you to the panelists you'll hear from soon for sharing their insight and the work for all of us. Again, a special shout out to Burns and Levison, notably, Anatoly Darov, Matt Fair, and Bill Lyons for working closely with the city on this event and for supporting our work around this event. But I also want to personally thank the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development, especially Mike Glavin, Tom Galligani, who's rolling around on his injury scooter, and Sue Thomas from our Economic Development Division for planning today's program and working so diligently each and every day to look at project delivery for Somerville in a really new and creative way. But also thank to all of you, again, for being here today, for your participation in today's events, and for your political and potential interest in Somerville. We look forward to the work to come and are excited to get started. Before I turn over to the official program, I do want to thank a special shout out to the Commonwealth, who's really looking at triple Ps in a very creative way, understanding that the Commonwealth has needs and infrastructure projects they need to understand better how to deliver. So we're really lucky today to have as our first speaker, we'll invite up the Assistant Secretary for Communities and Programs from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, Juan Vega, up to say a few words. Juan, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It is a great pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm actually filling in for Secretary Jay Ash, who had a conflict and wasn't able to attend. So no need to move the microphone high up or anything like that. I can stay right here. So I certainly want to congratulate the city and congratulate all the participants in this important endeavor and in this important effort that's happening here this morning. And certainly on behalf of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, as well as the Secretary, we have, as I believe many of you have experienced, really made a commitment and looked at molding a lot of our programming and investments to support public-private investments as a way, and partnerships, I mean, as a way to really leverage taxpayer dollars and really be able to get more accomplished, essentially, for communities. In the office, I oversee most of the grant programs, including MassWorks, Urban Agenda, and work with Mass Development on some of their initiatives as well, brownfield, site readiness, et cetera. And as a former city councilor, I have also a keen interest working with the Lieutenant Governor around the Community Compact Program, which is really looking to help cities and towns adopt best practices, essentially in municipal management, but also this helping them to understand and promote this idea of reaching out to your private partners, reaching out to community-based organizations, reaching out to others to really pool resources and be able to accomplish more for your community. In terms of, so our largest kind of initiative at the state level, obviously, is MassWorks, which is a capital grant program that allows us to be able to distribute and invest essentially in public infrastructure projects across the Commonwealth. And what we've been able to do, and certainly what has happened under this administration, is really honing in on rewarding or really helping to prop up projects that are maximizing their public-private partnerships in terms of how they're going to use the dollars from the state to create jobs, create housing, and create other opportunities in their communities. We're kind of smack in the middle of a round right now, and for those of you working on a MassWorks application, don't forget, next Monday we start accepting them formally through the portal, and you have until the 4th of August, and that'll be the deadline. The task then will be to really go through lots of really great and interesting projects that we're going to be reading about throughout the Commonwealth. To give you a sense, last year we received 114 applications. And in total, there were $287 million worth of requests from all kinds of communities, big and small. We were able to select 34 of the best projects and made $84.8 million worth of investment. So give you a sense of the need that is out there and what we're able to do in actuality. And so I highlight that because to help understand the way we've approaching this is precisely communities are being measured not only on the quality of the infrastructure project and the shovel readiness, because that's really one of the key components that we use to measure, to separate out the big pool of applicants, is who's ready to put shovels in the ground in the very next construction season as a measure of readiness. But we're also looking to see that the project, that the public infrastructure that the state's going to pay for, is precisely leveraging and opening up immediate economic and private investment. And overall, just last year, with the $84.8 million of investment, we leveraged $1 billion worth of private investment in this Commonwealth. And that is the goal that we will continue to pursue this year and years going forward. I give you also, the sense or the priority that we look to regionalization. You've heard and will continue to hear from both the Secretary and the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor. This focus on looking at regional opportunities, understanding that municipalities exist, but their success relies heavily on what's happening in the communities around them. You rely on them for highway access. You rely on them for, in some cases, streets, and as well as some of the economic activity, jobs, the workforce you need to be able to pull. And so understanding your role as both an exporter of workforce, an exporter of resources, and as an importer, if you will, as an analogy, is is critical, and we're seeing great success in communities that are really holding on to that and really um, uh, utilizing that mode. And certainly Somerville has been a key example and a great role model in terms of understanding its role and how it works collaboratively with its neighboring communities. There are a few other examples of where we've already begun to see some of this success, and what projects come to mind is in the Berkshires, we have about 14 communities that, seeing the declining enrollment in their public schools, realize the need to and agree to, after a lot of, I'm sure, debate, to consolidate all the back office functions for the 14 districts, which we highlight as a great example of communities understanding how you get a benefit by giving into an initiative like that. The Hilltown Collaborative, communities like Huntington and Chester, recently agreed to hire a shared planner. Nobody, the 6 communities didn't have capacity to bring that on, and so agreed and came up with a unique model in terms of sharing a planner and hiring one person, and then essentially parsing them out, if you will, parsing that person out and being able to distribute those resources. Crosstown Connect, communities up in Littleton, up in that area, were able to figure out how to combine their regional transit organizations. Traditionally, there were very hard lines, and you literally have little buses going up to that line. You may have, the issue, to give you a visual, is you have 2 different RTAs, 2 little vans, arriving at the same doctor's office with 1 passenger each who came, and then the same thing if they took them shopping or the elderly, and the inefficiency of that, and being able to say, look, let's take our resources, have the van cross through communities. If you're doing 1 hospital trip, you're doing 1 shopping trip or whatever, and it's easier said than done. There's a lot of turf in crossing over. So I hope you can appreciate the effort that it took to get them to do a combined fare, combined routes, et cetera. But that's the kind of innovation and kind of thinking that we want to see. And through our state investments, and not only through the executive office, but also through the Department of Housing and Community Development, and some of the funds and resources that come out of there. So I applaud, and certainly on behalf of the Secretary and the Baker-Polito administration, applaud this effort, applaud what you're doing here, and wanted to deliver the message that we are here front and center, and this is essentially the type of thing that we want to be investing in and supporting. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you again, Assistant Secretary Vega. And thank you, please, on our behalf, Secretary Ash, Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. We've had a very constructive and collaborative working partnership with those offices, as well as the Executive Office of Transportation, MassDOT, really. And, to speak and to give testimony to what Juan was just mentioning, we are the recipient of a $13 million MassWorks grant in Union Square, and the Baker administration and Secretary Ash, along with MassDOT, keenly recognize the benefit of assisting the city of Somerville as we're trying to move the Green Line project forward at a time when we've done something unprecedented as a community, put forth $50 million to help fund that project. We received a $13 million grant for necessary infrastructure work in Union Square to leverage the private sector investment. We greatly appreciate that. And we're going to deliver. And it's going to be fantastic, not just for Somerville, but the region and the Commonwealth. So right now, let's get into the program. I'd now like to turn over the program to the city's Director of Economic Development. He's been with us about a year. He's slightly hampered, but he's not put down. He's getting along just fine. So please join me in welcoming the Economic Director, Tom Gallegani.
Yeah, the mayor's very ambitious. He expects a lot of us, and sometimes we fail and we kind of fall down in trying to achieve all of our various goals and objectives. Let's see if I can get this going. There we go. As the mayor stated, our community has a very clear idea about what it wants its future to look like. Summer Vision, our master plan, is a statement of community values and outlines ambitious goals for new housing, new jobs, new open space, improved mobility. We're clear about the areas that we want to preserve and which areas will be transformed. But as we continue to implement strategies to achieve these goals, we recognize that we need to invest in infrastructure to unlock development opportunities. We need to invest in replacement infrastructure to address the kind of legacy issues that old cities face. And we need to invest in critically needed social infrastructure. We're building a $250 million high school that will help to transform learning for the next generation. We're resolute about our community values, and we recognize that a continued investment is required to achieve our goals. The mayor challenges us every day to think about how we deliver services with an expectation of continual improvement and innovation. Now, the mayor has challenged us to think creatively about finding new approaches to meeting our capital needs, to find innovative approaches to expand our ability to deliver on these many projects. This has led us to take a deep look into the emerging field of P3 project delivery. For those of you who are not aware of what P3 is an alternative project delivery model where you have an agreement between a private public sector owner and a private sector partner for the design, build, operate, finance, and maintain. So not just design and build, but the whole kit and caboodle. To looking at infrastructure, horizontal infrastructure and vertical infrastructure as a means of sharing some of the risk and transferring some of the risk from the public sector to the private sector and providing much needed resources and creativity. Purpose of our showcase. We've assembled a panel of project leaders in Somerville who will describe some of the projects that we're working on. We'll share some of the details about recent projects and projects that we're launching right now. We'll talk about what we're doing and what we'd like to do. We're going to walk through selected projects that we and our advisors believe have the potential to utilize the P3 delivery approach. Some of them you might like, and some of them may not be realistic. We're hoping to get some feedback from you and allow you to ask questions about our projects. We recognize that your experiences and knowledge might change the way that we think about these projects. Working together, we might uncover some brand new value in some of these initiatives. And over the next couple of months, we'll begin to develop a roadmap to bring some of these projects and initiatives forward. This afternoon, we're going to be meeting with some P3 participants who've answered our request for information. This will provide us with a chance to do a deeper dive into some of these projects and perhaps others that we haven't even considered. We look forward to these meetings this afternoon. We understand that government has an essential role to ensure that infrastructure meets the needs of the community. We understand that we have an obligation to deliver infrastructure effectively and sustainably. Our elected officials remind us of this every year at budget time or whenever we seek approval to float a bond. We need to ensure that we're spending no more than is absolutely necessary to meet the program objectives and to minimize project lifecycle costs. We know that not every project, P3 is not going to be the right solution for every project. Many projects will continue to be delivered using a traditional project delivery approach. You know this, we know this. In fact, Moody's just upgraded our bond rating to AA1, which was a tremendous achievement for our city. The city's in good financial standing, and we want to leverage that to the extent we can. But there's probably some projects that we need a little bit of help with. Our goals must be aligned in order to achieve successful outcomes. We know this from our years of successful partnerships with government and our private sector development partners. We're going to walk through some of these successes. Again, from our perspective in the economic development realm, public-private partnerships we've undertaken consistently and regularly over the last generation to achieve some transformation change in our city. The most interesting, this exciting mixed-use project at Assembly Square has emerged as Greater Boston's newest and trendiest neighborhood. It boasts over 2.8 million square feet of retail, office, housing, hosting over 5,000 employees every day, 1,000 residents living here at night, and hundreds of thousands of visitors that dine, shop, and play here in Somerville. It's highlighted by Partners Healthcare new gleaming facility that we're all enjoying today that opened last summer. Federal Realty, our partner in this project, has another 1.3 million square feet that's either under construction or in the permitting stage, including another 250,000 square foot office facility, and another 1,000 units of housing, and a new 120 key hotel. This is an overnight success story that's 30 years in the making. Assembly Square is Somerville's signature development project. The city initiated an urban revitalization plan in the late 80s to assemble parcels. We revised the plan in 2002, and in the mid-2000s, we welcomed Federal Realty Investment Trust to the table and have been a partner ever since. FRIT, the city, the Commonwealth of Mass, and the federal government have collaborated and jointly funded over $100 million worth of infrastructure to unlock the potential of the project. This included a new Orange Line rapid transit station that I hope some of you took today to get here, new roads, and subsurface infrastructure. The project was the first in the Commonwealth's I-cubed infrastructure financing program. Also, a locally approved district improvement financing was also critical to funding some of this infrastructure. The success speaks for itself. In fact, if you look at your welcome packet, on the left-hand side, there's a little packet that gives you an opportunity to explore for yourself Assembly Square, Assembly Row. Our friends at Federal graciously donated a small gift card for you to shop and dine and really get the full effect of Assembly. Union Square is Somerville's next signature development project. Somerville is planning to use the same basic formula that was utilized at Assembly Square, focusing development around a transit node, collaboration from the city, funding from the Commonwealth, a clear vision of the future, and a capable, experienced development team to help implement the vision. The difference here is that unlike in Assembly, Union Square is one of Somerville's historic central business districts. The aim here is to enhance and preserve the unique character of the square while facilitating transformational development that would establish Union Square as a regional employment center. In 2002, the city and the Somerville Redevelopment Authority approved the Union Square Urban Revitalization Plan, which will enable the city to assemble over 15 acres of land adjacent to the new and planned Green Line station. In 2004, Union Square Station Associates, US2, was selected as the city's master developer. In 2016, we approved an ambitious neighborhood planning process that culminated in the approval of the Union Square Neighborhood Plan. And just a few months ago, big milestone, we approved new zoning in the city around Union Square that will enable US2 to eventually submit plans to build over 2.3 million square feet of commercial and residential development. The Commonwealth, as was mentioned earlier by the mayor, has already committed its largest MassWorks infrastructure grant to date, over $13 million. Union Square Station is set to open in 2021, and the next chapter is ready to be written, that's for sure. And just a note for future, this project will likely displace our public safety complex, and you'll hear more about that project specifically as a possible P3 development opportunity. Next up is Innovation Row, and really there's no place more emblematic of the transformation of Somerville's economy as Innovation Row. It's in the heart of Somerville's historic manufacturing core, located along Somerville Ave. It's between, for those who might be familiar, between Union Square and Porter Square. This was the home of the Ames Safety Envelope Company for generations, and it was one of Somerville's largest employers for decades, employing over 600 people at its peak, making sturdy envelopes, boxes, file folders, and medical records for the medical industry. Over 250,000 square feet, really a mishmash of industrial space that hummed along for decades until technological change really made that operation obsolete. The family-owned company, they sold the product lines in 2010. 150 people were put out of work, and virtually we had an empty complex. The family undertook a major effort to reposition the real estate as the Ames Business Park. And it didn't take long for Somerville to fill that vacuum. In came the artists, the entrepreneurs, the weirdos, the technologists, the problem solvers, and the creatives. The place quickly became a place for new ideas to be tested, a place where smart, creative people collaborated and shared ideas. Artisans Asylum relocated and expanded the largest makerspace in the Northeast. Brooklyn Boulders opened up a large rock gym, so people had something to do after work. Aeronaut Brewing Company opened, along with its food hub, food incubator. Greentown Labs relocated from South Boston and opened up the largest clean tech incubator in the United States with the assistance of a loan from the city's Innovation Fund. You'll hear more about Greentown Labs later on today, one of our panelists. Canopy City, a co-working space that brings social ventures to work side by side with tech startups, opened last year in the facility. These uses are expanding within the row. New collaborative ventures are popping up. We've got Bow Market, which is a micro retail concept that's opening up down the street. Lots of exciting things happening. Many of these creative endeavors are now giving back to their new hometown. They've engaged the city in collaboration, using the city as a sandbox to test new products, new ideas, and new initiatives. Of course, we have the Green Line extension, which represents the most crucial project to allow the city to achieve its goals of summer vision. This $2.3 billion investment will create 7 new stations in Cambridge, throughout Somerville, all the way to Tufts University. It's going to connect Somerville, its residents, its businesses, with downtown Boston and the rest of the PT system. Its expansion will provide rapid transit service to over 85% of Somerville residents, helping us to achieve our mobility goals and help take some cars off the road. It will create an enormous opportunity for the city to reshape development in our transformational districts and allowing us to add jobs and critically needed housing in the city. It will lead to the growth of our tax base and allow us to have the resources to make the goals of Summer Vision a reality. It's going to start up construction set to start up next year, and it'll be completed and operational by 2021. And, the city has had a long history of working collaboratively with our public and private sector partners to deliver compelling and creative real estate projects that have transformed Somerville over the last generation. We've learned a lot. We understand our strengths, and we also understand what the private sector can bring to the table in terms of creativity, problem solving, new financing options, and project cost accountability. We're ready to explore and consider new project delivery approaches that will allow us to extend our capabilities and resources and continue to make progress towards our Summer Vision goals. Somerville wants to be a leader in the Commonwealth and a first mover in the municipal P3 realm. I'm going to welcome up Matthew Fair, who's from Burns & Levinson, our project consultants here, who will talk about the current legal and regulatory frameworks that may or may not allow us to do P3s the way we want to do them. Matthew, come on up.
Thank you, Tom. Which, is it this?
That one will turn this off.
Oh, this one, okay. Yeah. Thanks, Tom, very much. Very good job of kind of outlining where the city has come and the exciting transformation that's underway and pointing us in this direction to advance the city in the future. And we're very honored to be a part of the conversation, part of the team. And thank you very much for that opportunity. So what I was going to cover briefly is kind of a little bit of a roadblock to P3 here in Massachusetts. Nationwide, well over 35 states do have blanket P3 authority outside of traditional delivery, design, bid, build. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, we don't have blanket P3 authority at the state level. There have been limited exceptions to that pursuant to enabling legislation. For example, UMass Building Authority has a special dispensation to use P3s and have done so recently at UMass Boston for student housing. MassDOT in 2009 received P3 authority to deliver a number of projects, which to date they have yet to do, but I understand that there is a project underway potentially on lighting. But again, it's been limited by our statutory framework here in Massachusetts, the ability to use P3 at both the state and the municipal level. But as far as municipal P3 authority is concerned, we're limited by Chapter 149, which is the building construction statutes, Chapter 3039M, the public works construction statutes, and Chapter 30B, the Procurement Act that all municipalities are subject to. Which again promotes design, bid, build, traditional delivery, and unfortunately limits more creative and innovative delivery methods like public-private partnerships. There are some limited exceptions to that basic framework, one of which is Chapter 149A of the general laws, which does authorize design build for public works construction projects valued at $5 million or more with Inspector General approval, as well as construction management at risk to deliver stick construction, building construction, notably schools, again, above a certain threshold and with Inspector General approval. That's the only express authority municipalities enjoy under the general laws here in Massachusetts. There is an alternate route, which is the Home Rule Amendment here under our state constitution, which allows for the filing of home rule petitions to seek special legislation in the legislature. So that procedure starts here in Somerville. And, we have seen well over a dozen municipalities statewide seek special legislation to use public-private partnerships, most notably in the water and wastewater sectors, authorizing design, build, operate, finance, and maintain structures. So that's been done. I think Springfield, the city of Springfield, the Water and Sewer Commission was the first back in the mid-'80s. So there is a history of municipal P3 authority, but pursuant to a home rule petition process. So again, here in Somerville, and this of course is an opportunity to inform us as to whether or not we even proceed down this political path in the first place, because understandably, we're going to have to seek this special legislative dispensation if we are going to proceed with a public-private partnership. So that decision has to be made soon for legislative timing considerations. But that process is initiated here with the Board of Aldermen and the mayor, and with their approval of a home rule petition, attached to it a special piece of legislation would be submitted to the legislature on Beacon Hill. And in Beacon Hill, that would have to be subject to a legislative process, filing the bill in committee, reporting it out of committee, receiving a 2/3 vote in the House and Senate, and then ultimately upon enactment to the governor for approval. Of course, we're going to have to, if we do proceed down that path, we're going to have to do so in close conjunction with our state partners, both the governor's office and Secretary Ash's office, as well as the Senate President and the Speaker, working closely with our legislative body, the Board of Aldermen, the executive, the mayor, and our legislative delegation. So that is, in a nutshell, that process. But that's really the only process availed to municipalities to seek authority to use public-private partnerships here in the Commonwealth. There are efforts afoot to push forward more blanket roadmap legislation at the state level. We've been actively participating in that discussion, and we hope in the next session or so we receive approval in the legislature to push forward with these more innovative project approaches. But until that takes place, this is what we're stuck with, so to speak. So I just wanted to provide that flavor for those of you not familiar with the process here in Massachusetts. But obviously, the city is interested to hear from all of you throughout the program in making a determination as to whether to seek that special legislative authority and roll up our sleeves and get to work on one of these innovative projects. So before I turn it over for the first panel, I was just going to introduce you to the structure of the program. We'll have two panels. One will discuss capital infrastructure projects that the city has identified in conjunction with us as potentials for public-private partnerships. Public safety complex, which Tom alluded to earlier. There is also a new fire station project that is being considered. There's redevelopment of a former waste transfer station site. There's also the redevelopment potential at Gilman Square of the Homans building, so-called, which is contiguous to the new Green Line extension T-stop, as well as redevelopment of certain components of City Hall's campus, which is, we'll discuss this in greater detail when we touch upon this project, is also in conjunction with a high school building project that's underway, as well as student housing development in conjunction with our university partners. And Tufts University is here today and will be participating in that conversation. And then secondly, as Tom mentioned earlier, we're looking at also innovation infrastructure, not just your stick, brick, mortar type of projects, smart city technologies, mobility solutions, sustainability and clean tech, district energy, and these present very unique opportunities for innovative thinking. I was talking earlier with the city of Boston. I know they were looking into this type of P3 to deliver energy, creating these district energy programs. So there's a lot to talk about, and we have not a ton of time to do it. So I'm going to cut myself off here. We're at 11 o'clock, and I'll introduce my colleague Anatoly Darov at Burns & Levinson. He's a partner in our real estate team and leads our construction design practice, as well as our P3 and infrastructure group, of which I'm a team member of. And Anatoly will introduce the first round of panelists and kick off the conversation.
Thank you, everybody. If I could have the members of the first panel to the front of the room, that'd be great. It's been a real pleasure working with the City of Somerville on putting the showcase together. The willingness of the city to think outside the box relative to other communities in Massachusetts is terrific and encouraging, and it's great to see so many familiar faces and new faces in the room today, hearing about the needs of the city and how they could be met with partnership between the public and the private sectors. I'm going to introduce the panel here from your left to right. We have Tom Galligani, who spoke earlier. He serves as the Director of Economic Development for the City of Somerville, overseeing citywide programs and initiatives aimed at fostering stability and growth in the city's diverse economy, commercial business community, real estate development, and housing base and workforce development. To his left is Barbara Rubel. Barbara joins us from Tufts University, where she serves as the Director of Government and Community Relations. She has served the university in various capacities for over 40 years and is instrumental in the university's relations with its host communities in Medford, Somerville, and the Chinatown area of Boston. To Barbara's left is Brad Rawson. Brad is the Director of Transportation and Infrastructure for the City of Somerville. He's been with the city since 2007 and is instrumental in developing the city's SomerVision Comprehensive Plan and Somerville by Design efforts, which set the stage for the city's development future. Last, we have Rob King, who is the developer of capital projects and planning and has been with the city since 2010, with the exception of a short stint with the town of Framingham. In Rob's role, he's responsible for investment decisions across 30 plus municipal buildings and close to 3 million square feet of space. So we're going to proceed with the first panel, which is focused, as my colleague Matt said, on capital projects within the city. And the first project that we are going to talk about is the public safety complex. And Rob King is going to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm excited to be here this morning. Thanks to the mayor and OSPCD and the Board of Aldermen for being here as well. We certainly appreciate it. So this is a pretty interesting opportunity for the City of Somerville. As Tom had hinted at earlier, with the development plan for Union Square, we're most likely going to have to consider the relocation of the public safety building. And there is also an existing fire station adjacent to that building that would have to be relocated as well. When we think about where those buildings may go in the city, our primary focus to date has been what properties do we currently control. Obviously, we're trying to make the best financial decision that we can for the City of Somerville. So we've been primarily focusing our efforts on two locations. One is the waste transfer site, which we'll show a map of in a moment, and the other is the Homans site, which is actually right behind the existing City Hall and high school. So when we think about the relocation of that public safety building, and when we were preparing for this meeting today, we were trying to imagine what are the things that we should be thinking about? What are the things we haven't thought about to date? Really trying to think outside the box. And the ideas, the concepts that the team came up with is really not just the relocation of the public safety building, but what other items could or should be considered for use in that building. So you'll see on the slide that the police headquarters is currently targeted at roughly 78,000 square feet. We've currently been brainstorming and thinking about the possibility of a combined dispatch or regional 911 component in that building. That could be an additional 12,000 square feet. Should traffic and parking be in that building when we're done? What opportunities does that unlock with the existing traffic and parking building? That would take another 12,000 square feet. Of course, the Engine 3 component that I had discussed earlier, that's roughly 6,000 square feet in its current programming. The last component of that could be, again, for consideration, could be the relocation of some of our administrative staff from the central headquarters for the fire department. That, again, very preliminary, but that could be an additional 10,000 square feet. So this building could, in final form, be roughly 118,000 square feet of total programming. Again, that really depends on the final site that we pick, and I'll get back to the why for that on one of the subsequent slides. So again, you heard Tom mention earlier that the mayor has made a commitment to being a net zero city by 2050. So we try to imagine, you can see an image on the left-hand side of what the existing public safety building looks like. And we just looked around for some good images of what some other buildings look like across the country, and we thought this was a pretty telling building about what this final complex could look like in its final form. Again, just a concept. So the Engine 3 component, this is an interesting opportunity. Obviously, with a fire station, the requirements are that it be within a certain distance of the area that it serves. So while we have a little bit more flexibility with a public safety building or some of the uses that might be in that building, Engine 3 really has to be in a specific area. And so we're currently targeting, of course, the area in and around Union Square. This could be a standalone project. It could be partnered with another project that hasn't been conceived of yet. Or, of course, if the public safety building is located in this area, it would be part of that. That station would most likely be a 3 or 4 bay fire station, 6,000 square feet for the building, and an additional 1,000 square feet for the apron that's required for the trucks to get in and out. Again, interesting opportunity. So this map tries to demonstrate the areas that we're currently talking about. So you can see in blue Union Square. The red is the existing location for the fire department and the public safety building. And the two areas that are currently under our control that we're evaluating are the area to the north, the green arrow that's directly behind City Hall in Gilman Square. That's where the Homans building and site is. And then to the southeast, you'll see the waste transfer site. Again, another interesting site, plenty of opportunities on that site. And if we located everything there, Engine 3 could be on that site given its proximity to Union Square.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to go to Brad Rawson, who's going to speak to the Brad Rawson, who's going to speak to the waste transfer station site. But I will just say that at the end of the panel, we're going to have a Q&A opportunity. So if you have questions, please hold until then, and then we'll happily ask the panel to address questions about any particular part of any of these projects in a few minutes. Brad?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brad Rawson. I'm a Somerville resident, and I serve as Mayor Joe's Director of Transportation and Infrastructure. Our little team of 5 staff are responsible for parks projects, mobility projects, everything from the Green Line extension to your neighborhood traffic calming, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We are also responsible for urban forestry and, of course, collaborating with many of our other city departments on utility work, all in service of making this the best, most walkable, most dynamic, diverse, accessible, equitable city in America. We're 4 square miles, we're 80,000 people. All of our infrastructure systems and public investments have to work in harmony with private sector investment to achieve our community's goals. And like so many American cities that you have all worked with in various stages of your careers, we have an industrial legacy. Part of Somerville's opportunities that we're here to talk about with you all today are relics of the land use patterns of generations past and economic cycles past. The 2.5-acre waste transfer site in our Brick Bottom district is a perfect example of that. This used to be a neighborhood. Before McGrath Highway was transitioned from a elegant Olmstedian parkway built in the 1920s to a Robert Moses era elevated freeway cutting our neighborhoods off from one another in 1955, there was fine-grained urbanism on this 2.5-acre site. There was a neighborhood school. There were mom and pop retailers and row houses. And it was all transitioned to industrial uses in the mid-50s. And for a long time, the mayor tells stories about growing up in this neighborhood where trash was burned and the ashes floated down into our residential neighborhoods. Thank goodness the mayor and our Board of Aldermen had the courage to close down this facility and more recently to terminate a lease with our waste hauler that was using it for 18-wheeler semis coming in and out, transferring from local garbage truck routes to the regional movements. So we started a community conversation about What is the role for this important land asset that the city controls on the edge of a transitioning industrial district? We're about a 5-minute walk from one of the future Green Line stations that will be operational for service a few years from now. We are talking about the front door of the city of Somerville coming from Cambridge, McGrath Highway, O'Brien Highway. And so there's a real visibility to this site. And yet, as Rob said, we have meaningful and substantial public facilities needs in this city. We need open space. We need public safety type facilities. We need affordable housing. We need tax revenue. So we're in the midst of a conversation with our stakeholders, with our ward alderman, Mary Ann Houston, who's here today, about the future of this site. We also know that it plays an important role in the regional drainage system. I forgot my laser pointer, but if you go from southeast to northwest on your street, on the little street view there, you can see a local street called Poplar Street. There's a 6-foot sewer underneath it that the MWRA controls that drains, gosh, Rob, all of East Cambridge, half the city of Somerville. We're talking on this considering as we look out for the tax dollar, as we look out for our environmental sustainability and public safety goals in terms of flood control, is stormwater pumping facilities on the site as well. So we're in the midst of these conversations right now, and we're really interested in the perspective that you and your teams and your partners and stakeholders can bring as we work on various use programs, urban design that's consistent with the neighborhood planning for the area.
Thank you, Brad. Tom, you're going to speak to the Homans building site.
Homans building represents an opportunity to do some transit-oriented development right adjacent to one of our future Green Line stations, right at the base of City Hall and the base of down the hill from the high school, existing high school campus and the brand new $250 million high school. It's right now it's an old building. It's a 1.4 acre site. It's about a 50,000 square foot massive buildings. It's vacant. It's been vacant for a long time. It's derelict. It almost assuredly will be demolished, but it'll leave us with an 1.5 acre site right next to a transit station that will handle 3,000 trips a day. Again, with a strategic location right down the hill from the high school, brand new high school. And so we see it as an opportunity to really explore a number of different potential uses and collaborations. Maybe it's this location that we picked for the public safety building. We're going to take a look at that to see if that's an appropriate fit. But we also see, given its location and given its proximity to transit, future transit, it may be a great opportunity for some workforce housing. It could be a incubator of sorts that would leverage its location next to the high school, an opportunity to combine university partnerships with K-12 learning right at the foot of our brand new cutting edge facility. We could see all sorts of mixes, all sorts of uses. Again, it's going to be linked right with Tufts University. Perhaps it's a graduate student housing with a combination of maybe some classrooms, Barbara, maybe, to really bring the university close together. Again, on the other side, it's going to connect close to Boston. So this might be a municipal opportunity. It might be a collaboration. It might be a private, straight private development opportunity. And here's just some more perspective. As you look at that, you see the big mass of, you see the ugly building in the photo to your left, but in the smack dab in the center of this map, you see the gray mass that shows the location. To the right of that and moving eastward is where the station is going to be located. And that green space you see to the bottom of that slide is the kind of new version of what the high school may look like from that perspective.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about potential opportunities on the City Hall campus. So as part of the high school project, again, $256 million project, I have the privilege of serving on the building committee associated with that. Our primary focus is obviously the students, the educational opportunities. That is what drives every decision that we make. As part of the plan that was developed for the high school, in an effort to create adjacencies for certain educational components, to create a better learning environment, we're going vertical on a site further east on the site. So we're reusing a portion of the building. We're building a taller portion of the building on another site, on the site to the east. And really what this unlocks is what we're currently referring to as the 1895 building. So the original section that was originally actually used as City Hall, we're going to have an opportunity to bring that building back to life as a new project once the high school is complete. That building in its current plans could be approximately 60 to 66,000 square feet. There's an interesting opportunity here because we're also thinking about the rehabilitation of City Hall. Outside of these P3 conversations, I've currently been imagining this as a great CM at risk project where one contractor owns the renovation and rehabilitation of both buildings. We could take people out of City Hall, put them into the 1895 building when that work is done, renovate City Hall, and then when City Hall is complete, move the right departments back into City Hall, and now we have opportunities up on that site. We're also engaged or about to be engaged with a working group in the city to think about what our city department needs are. And so there could be a component of city staff or school staff that end up in that 1895 building. But again, it was a great opportunity to at least bring this up here today to hear what our partners in this room might imagine as opportunities on that site. One of the other items that was discussed in depth during our planning for the high school was a concept of a parking garage under the field that is being constructed as part of that project. We initially imagined that parking to serve city staff, constituents, and school staff. Unfortunately, due to some financial constraints as that project continued to develop, we had to make the hard choice of cutting that parking garage. This is probably one of the more challenging things to pull off, given the timing that we have for the high school and some of our partners at the state level, but it's still an interesting item that's worth discussing if there are ideas from the folks in this room. So you can see on this map in front of you, the building to the far left of that image is the existing City Hall. The next building over to the right is what we're currently calling the 1895 building. That's the building that gets unlocked due to some of the improvements that we're making as part of the new high school. The next building over, as you might imagine, is the new high school. We are working to retain the war memorial that's in the front of that building, trying to respect the historic nature of that structure. And then the existing central library is to the far right of that site. So behind the 1895 building, you can see the new open space that we're creating as part of this project. That will be a great recreational field that currently doesn't exist on this site and will become a great asset to our students, to our staff, to the city. But we feel there's still a potential opportunity for something below that. And so that's why we wanted to throw that out for consideration or discussion here today.
Rob, I just want to point out that the project I just spoke about, the Homans building, is located right here, just so you get a sense of the proximity. And the new Green Line station that serves Gilman Square will be right here. So it's all right in the middle there.
And if I can also chime in with one additional non sequitur there, folks may see the label for community path. If anybody this summer has been out riding the Minuteman, one of the nation's premier rail trails, running 20 miles out to the western suburbs, ultimately that Minuteman path continues through Somerville. We extended it as a city in 1990 with our partners at the MBTA. We just finished working with Mass DOT on a quarter-mile extension into the heart of Somerville. 4 years from now, when the Green Line is completed for service, this path will continue. And you can see it on the image here, and it'll go another half mile towards the east at the next Green Line station. So when you think about multimodal mobility, when you think about sense of place, this is a really, really unique Somerville neighborhood that is really connected to the regional economy, the regional mobility network, whether you're driving, riding the train, walking, or riding a bicycle.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, let's turn to Barbara, who is going to speak to Tufts University and university partnerships.
So Tufts is not an obvious fit today, and I want to thank the mayor and city staff for giving us the opportunity to be here. As a private research university in Medford, Somerville, in 2 Boston neighborhoods, and in Grafton, Massachusetts, we also have challenges and opportunities that might be of interest. Approximately half of the main campus, the Medford Somerville campus, is in Somerville, and it's about 150 acres split right down the middle. We have some buildings that are actually in both cities. The medical and dental schools are in downtown Boston. Our enrollment is about 10,600. I think that number is pretty good, split evenly between undergraduate and graduate students. 70% of our undergraduates live on campus in 25 residence halls, served by 2 dining halls. There are both large-scale dormitories and smaller houses that are used as theme houses for students who choose to live in them. So here's 2 pictures that show the campus if you're not familiar with it. The 150 acres is pretty traditionally the campus, and it is densely surrounded by residential development. We are very respectful of our residential edge, and years ago negotiated a university overlay district for the campus that requires us to be very respectful. We can't build anything on the edges of the campus that's greater than the 2.5 stories of the houses that are across the street. And as you go further into the heart of the campus, there's more zoning flexibility. We have partnered with the city on some things. We've gone beyond our boundaries to purchase a couple of former schools, both from Medford and Somerville. The Western Junior High School was the first school we purchased from the City of Somerville, and we've partnered with the city there since the beginning. Oh, sure. Sorry if you aren't able to. And in fact, there are still city tenants and users in that building today. We also bought an elementary school from the city of Medford, which we converted into housing, and that's used for junior faculty. For faculty, young faculty especially, who are coming to the Boston area for the first time, the housing market is really shocking. And so, no secret, right? And so that building has 12 units of housing in it. 3 of them are affordable units that are controlled by the city of Medford. And 9 are rented to faculty for up to 3 years as they get themselves acclimated to the area. So housing for junior faculty is something that we're interested in looking further at. Student housing, especially for underclassmen, is also a challenge. We house about 70% of them now. We are looking at some innovative models. We're trying to find more beds in our existing dorms, but we're interested in a new dormitory. We have not found the right way to do it yet. We've looked at models for doing it on campus. We've talked to some private developers, but we have some financial constraints about how we approach this project, and be really interested in hearing anybody's experience or ideas about doing that. One of the constraints is that currently every student who rents from the university pays the same dorm rate. So if it's a new building, you're paying the same as if it's an old building. If it's a large building, the same as if it's a small building. And we recognize that for a developer, that's not an easy lift, but we'd be interested in exploring that. We're also constantly doing rehab and maintenance. We have a lot of 100-year-old buildings that need to be kept watertight and energy efficient. And that's a regular ongoing thing. Every summer we have, when we can take buildings offline, we're doing a lot of work on them. And because we're located on a hill and have these old buildings, accessibility is a huge issue for the university. And I don't know if who's aware of this, but if you, over a 3-year period, do work in any building that exceeds 30% of its assessed value, you have to make the building fully accessible or apply for a waiver. And some of our structures, especially the old ones, it's just really impossible to make them accessible. So we're interested in that, and also keeping classrooms up to date, especially with technology, is an ongoing challenge. So the university has opportunities and challenges, and we'd be very interested to hear anybody's thoughts on those. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Barbara. This next slide, a copy of which is included in your materials, is an outline of the city's current thinking on a number of these projects. And I guess the city projects really fall into 2 categories. We have talked about the public safety complex and the Engine 3 fire station, which the city could envision being done on a design build lease basis, with the city making availability payments to a private developer that would take on these projects. The public safety complex and the Engine 3 fire station are really projects that are imminent. There's a current need. The city has planning underway and has a high level of interest in moving the projects towards an RFP process in the next 9 to 12 months. The waste transfer station site and the Homans building site could potentially fall into a different category. The waste transfer station site is a potential location for the public safety complex. But if that facility was to go elsewhere, and the city is certainly open to the ideas of the private sector and developers on maybe thinking about other sites that the city hasn't yet identified that could accommodate that facility. And if it were to go somewhere else, the waste transfer site, given the redevelopment on McGrath Highway and the infrastructure upgrades in that area of the city, could be a prime commercial redevelopment site, and it could be put out for that purpose. And the same with the Homans building site adjacent to the Gilman Square station. The Homans building and the City Hall campus together really provide a significant development opportunity, and the city is looking to explore a wide range of options, as Rob and Brad and Tom just spoke to. Those sites are perhaps the second wave of projects. They're contingent upon other capital projects that are currently under development, most notably the high school. But they are certainly a current focus and a priority for the city. And Barbara has shared with us some of the priorities for Tufts and the opportunities that may exist there for student housing, faculty housing, and classroom space development. And that's certainly exciting to hear. I'm going to open the floor. If anyone has any questions for the panelists about these projects, we're happy to take them. If not, we can also move to the second panel. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
With respect to the
There are microphones if you want to pass them around or step up to one of the mics. We just so everyone knows, we are videotaping the proceedings today, and they will be available online for folks that weren't able to attend and others not in the room. So it'd be good to get everybody to a microphone.
Thank you. With respect to the Homans building, there's a reference in a bullet to targeted subsidy. Can you just talk about that?
So I'll take that one, and if anyone else wants to chime in. There is no set program for the Homans site at this point, and the conversations that the city has been having is whether it wants to perhaps incentivize in some way a particular type of use, a targeted housing use. And that is part of the conversation. It could be part of the project. Certainly nothing has been said at this point, but given the size of the opportunity there, it could be appropriate.
Tully, can I chime in on that one as well? Sure. So for anybody who's doing homework on this particular site, there's a really, really important resource that the city spent a lot of time and a lot of community process developing. It's a station area plan, so a district redevelopment plan for Gilman Square. You can find it easily online by Googling somervillebydesign.com, Gilman Square. And one of the things you'll find as we are going through our community process, talking about this obvious candidate for redevelopment and all the diverse needs that we would consider there, keep in mind it's adjacent to the rail corridor. You've got commuter trains coming by at 45 miles an hour, 20 or 30 times a day. So we were, I think, humble enough and honest enough in our land use planning to say we're never going to have cafe tables facing the rail corridor. And so one of the use program elements that we had actually imagined was a big heavy wall and perhaps either parking garage uses there or fabrication space. Tom talked about the incredible energy down at the old Ames complex along Somerville Avenue, the emerging artisanal manufacturing, rapid prototyping economy that exists in Somerville. We know that there's a space deficiency there. So when you check out the Somerville by Design station area plan for Gilman Square, you'll actually see floor plans that the city's consultants developed, laying out a mix of residential and retail programs, but a dominant component of the ground floor uses on that Homans site are actually associated with that light manufacturing, big open floor plates, heavy walls, the potential for tall, heavy equipment. And when we think about the possibilities, Tom's team has a great track record of working with local entrepreneurs from the largest to the smallest to identify local and state resources for subsidy. So hopefully that's another helpful point to your question, Al.
Brad, let me follow up on that point. Has there been any discussion of air rights development in that area, given the railroad right of way and the grade differential between the Homans site and the City Hall campus?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Anatoly. So 2021, Green Line Station, 5 to 6 minute headways on trolley service, just like the rest of the Green Line. Community Path, brand new Somerville High School and Civic Campus up at the top of the hill. We have worked really, really hard with our state partners at Mass DOT and the MBTA to preserve volumetric easements and true recordable rights, air rights, so that someday, with the right partnership framework, if somebody envisions an economic case for building on that city-owned Homans site and vaulting across the tracks to connect with that civic campus up the hill and the community path, that we at least legally have asked these questions with our partners at the T ahead of time, so we're not trying to have a remedial conversation after the fact and then negotiate air rights. So those have been preserved in all of our dialogue over the last 5 years.
Terrific, thank you. Was there a question up here in the front? Yep.
Thank you. So I'm Kathleen Judge from Boston Fire. I'm the deputy commissioner there, and I'm very excited about these P3s because I've been trying to replace our fire stations. Our oldest fire station is from 1856, and our average age is around 76 years old. So I have a lot of questions about, obviously, Engine 3. So you may want to ask me to, in the interest of time, to reserve my questions for later. But I was actually surprised to see that a 3 to 4 bay house would be 7,000 square feet. So do you have firefighters that live there?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So that's just the footprint. So we'd be going vertical. That's just the footprint of the building itself.
Oh, okay.
And they would live at that location.
Okay, because one of the things we're considering as we try to rebuild some of ours is that we go to a second floor, because we do have some that are still ranch style because of safety, health, and wellness, and trying to remove them from their apparatus bays because of cancer. We want to separate and have positive air upstairs and negative pressure downstairs so that we keep them away from any of the diesel exhaust or any of the soot that comes back with them from the fires and things like that. So I'd be interested in talking to someone about the details of some of your plans for the station. Also, I was interested in sort of your lease option. Have you also considered giving developers any of your properties and then condoizing the rest of so you become a owner with the developers?
We haven't precluded that. I mean, it depends on the site and depends on the opportunity and depends on the project and program elements that'll be included. If there's a city need to be there, whether it's one aspect of the many uses that Rob described in the public safety complex, if that's combined with a private development, that's certainly an option, and we'd be interested to explore that.
Okay, and then another question I have is, do you also explore having developers use tax-exempt debt so that they could get a lower rate?
Again, we're not at that stage yet, but as we our real goal here is to identify some projects that push the envelope and seek some legislative relief at the state so that maybe we have more flexibility to look at all those different kinds of options to combine the best elements of public sector resources and the best elements of the creativity and the innovation that the private sector can bring.
Okay, great. And I think it was Matthew that spoke about getting the home rule petition as a blanket. Sign me up, because I would love that for the city of Boston. So if you need my vote, just let me know.
We'll follow up with you about that.
Okay, great. Because we have a lot of old city buildings, and so we would we'll welcome the opportunity. So, but if there's someone I can talk to more about Engine 3, just let me know.
Terrific.
Thank you.
I will say that one of the purposes for today, as has been said before, is really to help inform the city about what its roadmap should be from here until it reaches its first project. So the information that the city is going to be gathering today from your questions and the one-on-one interviews are going to be invaluable. And we'll have some additional information on kind of where we see ourselves now in the P3 and private investment roadmap. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Any other questions for this panel? Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll just talk here. It's pretty obvious. I'm Alderman Houston, and the Engine 3 and the public safety building, all of that is the board that I represent. So thank you for this, and I love what's been presented here in terms of the information because it provides me with more information. But I have a question, and it kind of relates back to the first portion prior to the panel, but also to the panel. So that there are this the legal and regulatory framework that we are sort of forced to work through. I'm trying to get a time frame on that because it sounds pretty intensive, and we've done this before. You know, we're not strangers to going to the state legislature with a home rule petition. But now I'm looking, and I am concerned because, of course, you know, development is imminent in Union Square, and you know, I'm concerned about, you know, Engine 3, public safety building, and the relocation. If we're looking to do that sort of in an imminent way, but we have this quote roadblock in front of us, can somebody give me an idea about that time frame and the success rate? I think someone mentioned Springfield water and sewer project. Are there any other examples from any other municipalities that have had to go through that process? Because this is really the first I've heard of that sort of legislative roadblock around public-private.
Sure. Yeah, I think roadblock is one way of putting it, but I think the home rule amendment process provides quite a bit of flexibility for municipalities at the same time. And what Matt Fair spoke to earlier about the city of Springfield and their use of the home rule process for their project in the 80s, that was probably one of the first water sewer projects that received special legislation. And you know, we've looked at a number of those bills that were, you know, that have been passed over the years. It probably a couple dozen times, as Matt said, and they actually grant quite broad authority for cities and towns to structure projects in very creative ways. Now, the reality of it has been that cities and towns don't often exercise all the authority that is granted by these special laws. But the precedent is there to go and receive special legislation and structure that legislation in a way that fits the needs of the city of Somerville, to do public-private partnerships in the way that fits the scale of their projects and the needs of the community. So to answer your question about timetable, if the city were to decide that any or several of these projects were going to be a go for a public-private partnership, the special legislation would have to be drafted, and it could be filed as a late filed bill in the current legislative session, and it would have to go through committee and hearing and then be acted upon by the legislature before the end of June 2018. If that schedule was not met, then it could not be filed until January of 19 and then be acted upon at that point. So, you know, there's certainly enough time to file a bill in this current legislative session, and whether the city decides to move forward with that, in part, is going to be informed by the showcase today. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. We're going to take maybe just a couple of minutes. I'm going to invite the members of the second panel and Bill Lyons, who's going to moderate that, to the stage. Thank you.
I just wanted to take a moment to recognize John Lenachek, who's the Chief of Staff for Congressman Mike Capuano. John, thanks for joining us today. Great.
If we could ask everybody to take your seats, please, so we can complete the second panel. I'd also like to invite the second panel panelists to the stage. Brad's extra special today.
Hi, Bill. Nice to see you. Thanks so much. Thanks for all your efforts. It's really cool.
Hopefully
Hi there. Julia, Brad Ross. Good to meet you. Thanks for taking time to be here. Yeah, thanks. Mr. Andrew. Good to see you. Hey, Richard. How are you? Wonderful. Excellent. Thanks for having us.
Rich, I'm Bill.
Matt?
Yes.
In
In a previous life, yeah. I'm going to ask each of you to just briefly introduce yourselves. I don't have a bio that I really have the first panel. So we're going to take a few minutes to explain your role.
And unlike last panel, if anybody needs a laser pointer, I've got one, so just move it on. Hey, you got one, Rich. Nice. That looks like a good one. Oh, the weighting in the hand. It's like that's nice. I like that. Cool. Quartet, yeah, same manufacturer. Cool.
That was a really embarrassingly nerdy conversation for you guys. Showing off laser
even
pointers.
more so than
Yeah, you're not kidding. You're not kidding. If I had a dime for every time I've been at a community meeting and literally been standing with the glare of the projector.
Okay, if we
in my
could get
eyes
everybody
and
settled at their
shadow of my
tables,
finger
please.
To point at something on a map.
Still morning?
Technically, I think, Bill.
I think right before.
Good morning. My name is Bill Lyons from Burns & Levinson, and I'll be moderating the second panel today. This panel is focused on much less traditional types of projects and innovations than most people think about when they think about P3 projects. The tendency when we think about P3 projects is to think about physical infrastructure, physical buildings, and this panel is largely focused on other ways that the city can use its knowledge base, its history of innovation to propel the city into the next generation of the American economy, based on technology, based on clean energy, based on a future knowledge-based economy. So the panelists today will be speaking about general concepts that we believe are suitable for a public-private partnership of a non-traditional sort that will allow the city to move its technology infrastructure into the future. With that, I'd like to give each of the panelists a brief opportunity to introduce themselves and to let us know what they're going to be speaking about in brief, and then we'll get to their presentations. Julia?
Sure, thanks. Is this thing on? No.
Thanks.
Hello?
Hey.
Okay, sorry. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Still morning. My name is Julia Travellini. I'm the marketing director at Greentown Labs. Thanks so much to Mayor Joe, Tom, Sue, Oliver, everyone here for having us today. It's exciting for Greentown to participate in this great panel. In my role at Greentown, I sort of head up our marketing and branding and kind of how we tell our story strategy, and also how we work with our key stakeholders like the City of Somerville and many of our key corporate sponsors to therefore enable clean tech startup companies that work within our facility to scale up and go to market faster. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later and explain kind of our model and the types of companies that are working in our facility and how the city has enabled us to grow pretty quickly in the past 3 years.
And you've already been introduced to Brad, but I'll let Brad introduce himself again.
Hi, everybody. At risk of repeating myself, Brad Ross, and the Mayor's Director of Transportation and Infrastructure. And just to tee up some of the lines of questioning and discussion for this particular panel with the broad portfolio our team has, we work on traffic safety, mobility, good old-fashioned street lights, and of course with an eye on emerging mobility as service, smart connected vehicles, and connected infrastructure. So when we think about the way that Lyft, Uber, Hubway, A variety of kind of zip car and shared services are revolutionizing the way that we get around our cities. We are also the mayor's point people on working on all those issues, and that'll be one of the items that we touch on for this particular panel.
Thank you, Brad.
I'm Oliver Sellers Garcia, the Director of the Office of Sustainability and Environment for the city. Thanks for inviting me, and what a great turnout, and kudos to Tom's group. My office, with just 3 people, we do a few different things: service delivery, special projects and programs, and also policy and long-term planning on sustainability and environmental issues for city operations, so corporate sustainability, but also community-wide. A large breadth in our portfolio. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about how some of our climate goals line up with potential P3 opportunities.
Hello, my name is Rich Fraisch, the Director of Engineering for the City of Somerville. The engineering department is tasked with maintaining and improving all of our public utilities in the public right-of-way. So in this context, unlike the city of Springfield, we don't have a pressing need that would be an opportunity for a triple P. However, there are very many opportunities that may arise that would have a footprint within the right-of-way. We are very receptive to having additional shared utilities and working with our existing utilities as a potential energy resource with anyone who's interested in that. So my focus here today is to help facilitate any of those discussions and usher those ideas along.
Thank you each. So what we're going to do is move into some discussions about some of the potential areas of interest. And first we'll start with a discussion about smart city technologies. Brad will lead that discussion.
Thanks, Bill. And I know this is an issue close to your heart as well, as a licensed engineer and a former traffic engineer. So who among you, can I ask for a show of hands, who has been reading in the mass media or the technology or trade magazines about autonomous vehicles? Pretty good show of hands. Who among you think that they will be on the road for general purpose traffic 5 years from now? Who thinks that it's 10 years out? Yeah, I think those are the 2 bookends, truly. We're working on these issues about 2 years ago when the city really stepped into this space. We were proud to be one of the estimated 5% of American municipal governments who were actually taking our heads out of the sand and saying, this is not a sci-fi novel. These are real consumer trends that are going to influence the way that our cities grow and prosper, or do not grow and prosper, right? The last major technology shift in the 30s, 40s, the kind of post-war era, when it became the standard for every American household to own a car, had its benefits for our national and our local economies, and clearly it had its detriments. The mayor often talks about how Somerville is past the era where we will serve as the on and off ramp for greater Boston. We're a community of neighborhoods. We're a community of real people who are breathing air polluted by the 200,000 cars coming down the I-93 corridor every day. Our wealthiest neighborhoods and our poorest neighborhoods have disproportionate numbers of early death, childhood asthma, cardiovascular health challenges because of the pollution coming off that freeway. And so we are engaged in an active and intentional conversation with MassDOT that has an autonomous vehicles working group and with industry partners, of course, including Audi, our research and development partner that I'm sure you've all read about, to really understand how soon is the technology going to be widespread? What steps can municipal governments take to, I think, channel that investment energy and make sure that we are accentuating the positive sides of new mobility choices, the positive sides of a reduced environmental footprint, and not allowing ourselves to fall into that 1950s trap again of simply living with the negative externalities of petroleum-based motor vehicles. I have come to start noticing the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world in my day-to-day commute, in my day-to-day travels around the city. I'm a walker, I'm a bus rider, I'm a bicyclist 12 months a year, but I'm also a new dad, so I'm a driver, and I'm dropping my kid off at daycare every day. And it is remarkable to see the number of vehicles now participating in this sharing economy that was promised to actually take vehicles off the roadways. New York City just published a study recently that showed that they've actually seen about a 3% increase in vehicle miles traveled since TNCs, the transportation network companies, were permitted and licensed to start working in New York. So clearly, these new technologies are a double-edged sword. So it's important for the city to be working with private partners to actually understand the implications as these companies want to deliver their services, test in urban environments like Somerville. The last thing I'll say as I kind of tee this stone up, Bill, is that one of the things that we've heard from the industry providers through platforms like the Mass DOT Autonomous Vehicles Working Group is that the industry providers, whether it's Uber in Pittsburgh, whether it's Toyota in Ann Arbor, or whether it's Nutonomy in Boston, these industry providers are very skeptical that municipal governments can actually mirror their own investments. Autonomous vehicles that simply talk to customers via smartphone apps are only the tip of the iceberg. Vehicles need to talk to infrastructure. The City of Somerville needs a traffic management center, like the next generation of the version that the City of Boston has today, so that we can understand live time where queuing is occurring, if a sinkhole or an unexpected utility conflict emerges. Heck, if we're just talking about an arts festival that's going to have traffic flow implications, we want to remotely be able to manage signal timing and phasing from a coordinated central office. That's the direction that these mobility solutions are going. And if we don't make investments in hardware, in software, and in sensors in our run-of-the-mill traffic signals, we're not going to be able to get there. So I'm delighted to report that 10 days from now, the City of Somerville will debut new traffic signals in Union Square, our historic downtown district, that not only allow for two-way travel on Prospect Street and Webster Ave for the first time in 50 years, but the traffic signals that we have built are state-of-the-art, are to be broadcasting their signal phasing and timing so that investors and that R&D partners, most specifically Audi, are able to run vehicles equipped. They'll have human drivers, but they'll have onboard computing systems that are actually downloading information so that we can kind of leverage the big data world to actually improve mobility in the City of Somerville. So that's just one example of how the mayor asks our staff to treat the City of Somerville as a laboratory for the public good, and we'd be interested in hearing any ideas that and any of you folks have in this space.
And so just to touch briefly on the slide that's up, there are two specific areas I think the city's looking to explore, which is this A2X systems and infrastructure, essentially capitalizing on your existing rights of way, as Rich earlier alluded to, and the potential, for instance, on city vehicle electrification. You want to talk a little bit about those two?
Sure. Maybe, Bill, if it's okay, I'll just hit the first one and ask Oliver to speak on the second one.
Sure.
Thanks. So our early adoption Union Square project that I just mentioned is 3 traffic signals. City of Somerville controls 75 in our little 4 square miles of land area. So thinking about scalability is really important to us. We made sure that the investments that we have are open source and are non-proprietary. So it's not like we've just taken an off-the-shelf product that only works with one vendor. So again, for anybody who's interested in working with us on mobility solutions based on sensors and traffic systems, we are looking to scale these investments up. But Oliver is actually our point person on our fleet electrification, so I'd love to have him answer your second question.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to defer to the end because I do bring up fleet electrification.
Okay, great.
In the slides I have prepared, but yeah.
Well, as it turns out, the next slide is sustainability and clean tech.
So I guess I couldn't get away from answering that question
segue,
for very long. All right. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about how Somerville's climate goals line up with P3 opportunities. And I don't think we can overstate enough how much the mayor's visionary carbon neutrality by 2050 goal really drives a lot of our thinking across the city. Not just my department, which it keeps me up at night, but it's really something that's permeated all of our thinking. And Brad's department in particular is a perfect example of how this goal really has seeped into the decisions that they're making and how they're projecting what the future will look like in Somerville. So, there's some things here that are really common across probably all the cities that you've worked in, that we really have dire needs in municipal, commercial, and residential sectors. The energy needs in those sectors have some similarities, but also some very big differences. And there are opportunities and innovation that needs to happen in each of those to decarbonize energy usage in those sectors. Our greenhouse gas accounting has revealed that, like other cities here in the Northeast, we're very much focused on building, stationary energy, and transportation-related emissions. So 2/3 of our emissions in Somerville come from primarily from buildings, including also other stationary sources such as outdoor lighting. And also transportation is over 1/3, and of that third, 99% is single occupancy vehicles. So that's really where there need to be transformative changes. So past initiatives that are not exactly P3s, but other collaborations that are worth noting are a citywide LED streetlight conversion and a 19 building performance contract. Both of those were performance contracts, an energy efficiency performance contract on 19 buildings. And also a number of energy conservation measures in city facilities, primarily lighting, controls, but also EV charging stations that have been funded in part by the State Department of Energy Resources, as well as substantial incentives from Eversource. And then, not on my slide, but that definitely is worth mentioning, are a number of collaborations with companies at Greentown Labs and other clean tech companies that really range from pilot projects to more opportunities for procurement. So moving on to the next slide. Can I do that? Yeah, okay, great. Earlier in June, we launched Somerville Climate Forward, the city's integrated greenhouse gas reduction and resiliency plan. This is a really exciting moment for us because we've been working on a lot of background data analysis to identify opportunities to reach our preparedness and climate goals. The slide you see here is it's a breakdown of how certain technologies that exist today, if they were applied with very aggressive levels of adoption and penetration, how far they would take us to reaching our 2050 goals. For us, this is a source of information for working with our community and stakeholders to figure out what are the priorities that we want to put in our plan. But another way to look at this information is really this is a list of the potential investment opportunities in technologies and public-private partnerships. And really, because the mayor says quite a bit that climate preparedness is an incredible opportunity for economic growth and to increase equity. So we really see that what might look like just planning priorities are really opportunities for investment. And what I want to highlight is that the main ways that we really predict that Somerville will get to carbon neutrality are, decarbonizing electricity and pretty dramatic fuel switching in heating and cooling of our buildings, and also in transportation. And we believe that district energy plays a big role in that as well. So I want to point you here to Sustainaville, which is the city's overall umbrella for climate planning. The study that this slide comes out of, and lots of other information, is available at somervillema.gov/Sustainaville. So check that out. And moving on to the next slide, the information that I showed you, as well as a lot of our other early thinking, brings a couple ideas to mind for potential projects. So as I mentioned, there's a great deal of need in retrofitting existing buildings. There's a great deal of redevelopment, but we are also a community with a lot of historic and cultural character, and we will no doubt be preserving a lot of our assets. So really thinking about how to turn existing buildings into high-performing or net zero carbon buildings is a challenge that we're facing. We also like to think of innovative renewable energy systems that can be housed on city facilities, either for city use or for community benefit. For example, community solar. We have done a lot of thinking on how we compare with other cities that have been able to do community solar, but we're the densest city in New England. We have old, small buildings. We don't have a giant landfill or a water treatment plant that is waiting for solar, so some real creativity will be needed there. District energy I touched on. I think it's really a perfect opportunity for public-private partnerships simply because of the nature of the investment and models that are out there from other parts of the country, but also particularly in Europe. And with the amount of redevelopment that is happening in Union Square and other districts in the future, we have a fairly unique opportunity in the Boston area to build new districts from the beginning that are incorporating or ready for district energy. And some of those areas, I mentioned Union Square, but also the City Hall municipal campus area, which our mayor has also pledged to make that campus itself carbon neutral. And then answering the other question, electrification of the city fleet. I think it's the direction that we're going in. We have an opportunity to lead by example, but also the cost and operational benefits appear to be very beneficial. And we also have the opportunity to rethink how, for example, charging happens for our fleet and introduce that into the way charging and parking is thought of for vehicles in the whole community. So lots of opportunities there to rethink the way land is used, particularly for charging and how we can combine public and private vehicles. So that's the end of my slides.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And before we move on to Greentown Labs, Rich, you brought up earlier the potential for making new uses and maximizing the benefit of public rights-of-way. There are lots of opportunities to do that in the emerging economy, including finding ways to use telecommunications infrastructure that's privately funded, privately constructed to enhance city operations, et cetera. I was wondering if you could embellish a little bit on your thoughts on that.
So there are a few. You mentioned the telecom, marrying of telecom conduit with city infrastructure. As a matter of fact, it's part of the projects that are supporting the Union Square development along Somerville Ave. We're incorporating exactly that sort of thing, including telecom ducts alongside our new drainage facilities, so that we can partner with telecom companies and provide them the conduits that they need for their facilities. There are other opportunities throughout the city for those sort of things where we can incorporate that sort of infrastructure in other projects that are happening anyway within our right-of-way. There are opportunities where we can use the water in the sewer system as a source of heat, either in the wintertime for the inherent heat that's in there, or in the summertime as a sink in lieu of cooling towers. We have 165 miles of sewer and drain line in our 4.2 square miles. So to say that there is opportunity there is a little bit of an understatement. District energy that Oliver made mention. For district energy to work, you have a centralized source of that energy, and then customers who are dispersed and separate from that site. To transfer the energy, usually in the form of heating and cooling water, you need additional pipes to distribute and recirculate that. So those would be brand new utilities that we would put in our rights of way. We have a very dense city. Our rights of way are often narrow and congested with other utilities, but these are not insurmountable challenges. These are very interesting challenges from an engineering perspective. So we're very excited to modernize all of our utilities, many of which were constructed at the turn of the century, the previous century. So it gives us some opportunities to update some 140-year-old infrastructure and basically skip over the 20th century sort of technology and go right from the 19th to the 21st.
Great, thanks, Rich. Great insights. So before we turn to Greentown Labs, I think you can get the sense here that Somerville is really well positioned to capitalize on technological innovation as a way to drive new economic opportunity here in the city. Greentown Labs is the held up example of what that can look like here in Somerville. So we're very fortunate today that Julia Travaglini is here to talk a little bit about what they've been doing. But before she talks about the amazing things she's doing, we had a brief conversation before we came up about the history of the Ames Envelope site where they currently have facilities, and how that the history of that site relates to the city's looking forward as an innovation hub and a leader in new entrepreneurial approaches. So if you could just briefly touch on that.
Sure. I can touch on that before I give you kind of overview of Greentown. Has anyone here been to Greentown before, just by show of hands? Oh, awesome. Love to see that. So the city, so earlier we were talking about or hearing about how we're kind of part of Innovation Row with Artisans Asylum and Aeronaut and our friends at Canopy and Brooklyn Boulders. And we have a great kind of little mini community within this awesome community of Somerville. And it's really interesting to look back at the rich history of manufacturing, expertise and innovation that the city has had. And we are fortunate to have a wall display, like mural, right in Greentown that those who have been there have probably seen before, that right in the Ames Business Park, before it was the Ames Business Park, back in the, I think, 1800s, it was known for the American Tube Works, which was the first company in the United States to manufacture seamless brass and copper tubing for ideally coal-fired engines. So now it's cool that there's the largest clean tech incubator in that same facility that was once doing that. And similarly, the manufacturing history that was once then, we also have explanations of the American Glass Company, which was the first hand cut glass company in the United States, and I think only of the time for many years. So those rich stories and really interesting bits of history. Fast forward to today, I mean, Greentown is fortunate to partner with the City of Somerville also on manufacturing initiatives. So we are working on a program, I think Ben is in the room maybe, but from farm to factory, partnering with the city to help educate and stimulate kind of the next group of manufacturing experts and workers, and continuing that industry to move forward so that we can keep manufacturing right here in Somerville, in the Commonwealth, and in the U.S. And that's kind of a program that our organization in partnership with the city is trying to stimulate, so that companies like the ones that work at Greentown don't feel that they need to have their products, made overseas, that we can do it right here in our city.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So continuing, I'll give you a little history about Greentown. I think it'll help set the stage for our expansion, which you can see here. So right now we're at 28 Dane Street, which is about diagonally behind Market Basket, right next to extra space storage. We have 33,000 square feet. That enables currently 55 startup companies that are all working on hardware, clean technology product development. We weren't originally in Somerville. We were fortunate to move here in 2013. For a little brief history, we were founded in 2011 by 4 startups out of the MIT ecosystem that had these great ideas, needed to find a space to build them and share the cost of rent. And so they grew their community sort of naturally over time, and they were from Cambridge to downtown Boston in the area that was just then being dubbed the Innovation District. And they were there for a couple years, but they outgrew the space, and the rent also outgrew their pockets, because the Innovation District became very, very hot to the city's credit, City of Boston's credit. So Mayor Curtatone actually came to an event that we hosted in our former location in Boston and said, hey, we've got this amazing space that I think could help you grow from your current 25 companies to 50 and beyond. And so with his support, also a loan for $300,000, was able to help us move those 25 companies here in about 2.5 days, which is remarkable when you think about moving that many people and products and technologies here in September of 2013. And the support from the city has just been tremendous from that first day when he said, hey, let's do this, to now, which he has been the catalyst to us building out this new expansion space, which I'll talk about also. Since 2013, Oliver touched on it before, but to go a little deeper, the Green Tech program that the city runs enabled not only our community to get more involved in the City of Somerville's initiatives, but 2 of our companies specifically had the opportunity to test out and pilot their technologies around the City of Somerville, which, for those who don't work in the startup space, specifically the hardware startup space, that, along with fundraising, is the kind of biggest barrier to entry and biggest challenge that they face in terms of deploying their product. So having Right Grid, which is a solar powered charging station for cell phones, was right in Assembly Row, I think by Earl's Kitchen, is that the name of the restaurant? Was right there. Many of you may have seen it. We also had an understory weather station, which is a weather monitoring and sensing station, I believe on top of the city's city-owned buildings, which is, a testament to the mayor and all of his team's kind of vision for actually deploying and welcoming all of these clean tech startups to kind of use the city as their own lab and their own experiment place, which is one of the welcoming statements that the mayor said to us when we first came here in 2013. So it's been a great experience, and we've grown tremendously, as I mentioned. So we went from 25 startups in 2013 to now we are at capacity with 55 companies that average about 5 people per company. So since our inception, we've supported about 120 startups. So we have around 60 who have graduated from our program, and all of whom have collectively employed more than 900 people, which we're very proud of. And our new facility, which you see here, it's going to open. Construction is underway. If anyone has driven down Somerville Ave, you've probably seen right next to Extra Space Storage before you hit, depends on which direction you're going. If you're going into Union Square, there's a lot of cardboard up on the windows. I think you were saying you rode by it recently. There's a lot of work happening behind those cardboard pieces of plywood, or it's not cardboard, that wouldn't be safe, but it's wood. So it's an enormous facility, and like I was saying, so Mayor Joe was the catalyst to us building out this new space. He saw that we were at capacity in our current facility, and he said, hey, we've got this amazing Somerville resident, Chris Oganowski, who owned, it was called Chris Co. What was the name of his company beforehand?
I don't know.
It was Mako Auto Parts. I am so sorry if Chris, if he was here. Mako Auto Parts. So they were there for about 34 years. He's owned and operated that building as a auto body painting and servicing center for cars for many, many years. But he was itching to kind of find a new way to utilize that large footprint. It was an enormous space that had room for 3 levels, and he was using it for just the one base level. So the mayor brought Chris and our CEO Emily together and said, let's see if we can make something work here. And Chris has been a tremendous supporter and invested a lot of money into the facility as well for us to retrofit it. Like Oliver was saying, it's a great opportunity for retrofitting many of these old buildings. So the building's more than 100 years old, and we are now turning it into, it's enabling us to be the largest clean technology incubator most likely in the entire world. Currently, we're in the United States, we're the largest, but we will grow to be the world's largest, because with this new building, we're able to bring about 55 more startups into our space. We're expanding our footprint in terms of the prototyping lab space that we'll offer to the member companies. We're building a new wet laboratory, which is a very unique and critical need to many specific startups that are working in the advanced materials or chemicals or water and waste sector. There's a lot of that, those labs in the Kendall Square area for biotech, but not a ton for clean tech. So that'll be one of the first in the region for us to offer it right here in Somerville. We're going to be walking the walk and talking the talk. So Greentown is going to be very green in this building with the support of the city and with many of our member companies, which we're very excited about. So we're going to have a solar array on the roof powering the building. We're also going to have one of our member companies that creates a battery. The battery is going to be storing the energy right in the building. And we also have a member company that has developed a hydrogen fueling station for hydrogen cars. They actually are kind of leading the charge in terms of that technology across the country. They won a $1 million prize from the Department of Energy for a grant program. And we're going to install, with the help of the City of Somerville and Mass CEC, we're able to install one of their units right in the building, and they're going to have a small fleet that will be available to the whole community to share the hydrogen charging and electric vehicle charging cars right there at Greentown, which is very exciting. We're big advocates of bike riding, which I think you said. So we'll have a lot more bike parking on site. And we're just really excited to be able to have kind of street level access for the whole community to see right into Greentown. We'll be offering lots of community events for people to come on out and network, get to know our members, get to know the community, and serve sort of as just like a great meeting place for the city of Somerville and beyond.
Thank you very much, Julia. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to clap, that's okay.
Oh, no, sorry, that was a little long. Sorry.
So thinking about how the city of Somerville is building on its past of innovation and looking forward and creating a new environment of innovation, I think you can hear from our panelists just how eager and interested the city is to partner with the private sector to identify new ways to capitalize on the knowledge economy and propel the city into the 21st century, and really provide an opportunity to capitalize on private industry's innovation and entrepreneurship as well. With that, I'd like to open it up to questions, if anybody has any questions for our panelists. Yes.
I would just like to make a comment again. But you have no idea what a community satisfier is to see an existing old building we once used for Lego, essentially for automotive use, to remain essentially structurally the same, but now to house this innovation district. And on the board of Aldermen, I know, and I'll speak to my colleagues here, that in our new zoning, we're looking at fabrication districts, which is really to say buildings like this don't necessarily have to be knocked down and made residential, but when you have an opportunity, commercial opportunity, like it's a brand new commercial opportunity, we're going to say that those kinds of buildings, special zoning around that to promote this. This is a big deal. This is a big deal for the people who live in this ward in the city to see this kind of innovation go into such an old building.
We were able to
Alderman.
keep the 100-year-old roof, actually, which is really awesome. Come check it out when it opens in November.
Well, Julia, just as another editorial comment, it's also about providing pathways to career development for our young people. Somerville is in the middle of an important equity conversation. We have private capital flowing into this city, and that's a great thing. And part of the real success story of the mayor's partnership with Greentown and so many other folks is about making sure that that investment is benefiting all of our residents, no matter where you come from, what your background is. Next generation manufacturing is an important way for our next generation of residents to be able to afford to live here and benefit from all the amazing things that have been happening in Somerville over the course of 20 years, right?
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make a comment on self-driving cars and autonomy. So my name's Matt. I'm the co-founder of Canopy. It's a startup incubator over in Union Square. But I was working at MIT CSAIL when they finalized the partnership with Toyota. And so used to have a lot of opportunities to engage with John Leonard. So he's the leading mind over there on autonomy. But, you know, LiDAR technology hasn't really come along very far in 40 years. And so when Volvo did a recent test, the CEO of Volvo kind of wigged out because their test failed from what the CEO of Volvo said because it couldn't see the lines in the street. And so when you hear these estimates of when we'll see fully autonomous vehicles on the road of 10, 15, 20 years, that's coming from the auto manufacturers. But when you talk with people like John Leonard or Patrick Lynn, the issues of algorithmic morality, overcoming challenges with 3D mapping, cybersecurity, getting city infrastructure in line. Some people say we may not see fully autonomous. But what a lot of leaders do believe is that with these deeper challenges, the ones that the auto companies really aren't advertising, we may only see human in the loop on dedicated roads within 10 years. So the question is for Somerville, if we were to create that infrastructure on dedicated roads with proper sensors, proper signs in place, proper lines, you wonder if Somerville could serve as a test bed for this first generation of semi-autonomous vehicles.
Great question, Matt, and thanks for the perspective. I look forward to having some follow-up questions and discussion with you along those lines. So we've talked a little bit about how Somerville is just 4 square miles and how we have so many diverse needs to meet within those 4 square miles. Believe it or not, one of those square miles is roadway, is asphalt. So we actually have only 3 square miles to achieve all of our affordable housing, our diversified tax base, job creation, open space, cultural facilities goals, because one of our precious square miles is occupied by roadways. And therefore, we're in the midst of a series of conversations about repurposing right-of-way away from the exclusive service for only automobiles to a much more multimodal, kind of equitable distribution of uses. Again, this is a story that's been unfolding around America for the last 10 years or so. Dedicated bike lanes are probably the most kind of easy to imagine example that everybody can see in their mind's eye because Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, others have been so successful with them. What's actually more interesting as we think about the next generation of repurposing that right-of-way is how we serve high-capacity mass transit and also create a space for potential R&D and testing for autonomous vehicles or similar services. Believe it or not, the city of Everett, right across the river, just did something really, really progressive. They eliminated something like 200 parking spaces along their commercial spine of Broadway, coming from Glendale Square down to Route 99 and the Alfred Street Bridge, every morning during peak rush hour to create a dedicated bus right-of-way. So I think when we talk about with the entrepreneurs in the autonomous vehicle space, we often hear this question: can we secure some sort of dedicated right-of-way to test our vehicles? And I think our response would be exactly the almost the inverse of what we said about bicycle facilities planning. Yes, but it's got to be serving more modes of travel than just autonomous vehicles. So bus plus AV, bus plus bike plus AV, those are the kinds of conversations that our community expects us to have because we have so little right-of-way to dedicate. So I think it's a qualified yes.
Yes, sir.
Check, check. Hey, my name is Travis. I'm from the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I work on smart cities and district energy, and I know Oliver well. Thanks for this really impressive event. I think everybody who put this on is asking the right questions at a very critical moment when cities are cash-strapped and looking to make investments. On that note, cities' availability of funding, especially in New England with high credit rating, is not sparse. We can get cash for things that we want to do, and I think in Brad Swing and I's experience, he's the Director of Energy Policy and Programs at the city, we're kind of scratching our heads when we get approached by these middle market infrastructure companies because they say, we'll bring the capital. And we're like, what interest rate is your capital at? And they're like, I don't know, 6 to 8%. And we're like, we're at 2.5%. So why would we use your money? And that is a contingency on which most infrastructure developers will put their skin in the game, is they have to sink their capital. They're not well-intentioned. They want the returns. They don't just want the engineering work. So have you found yourselves in this position yet? If you are, what are you doing about it? And if the city is considering co-funding projects with that blended capital rate, typically people want backstops. Are you guys comfortable with that? I mean, there's all these contingencies that get put on public-private partnerships, and I'm wondering how your budget office and your CFO is sort of thinking about this internally. Thank you.
Who wants to take that one?
I can do the referral. Travis, great question. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Fortunately, our great CFO, Ed Bean, is here representing the city's finance and treasury office. Ed has decades of experience, right? The mayor talked about our recent credit upgrade. That's a testament to the work of our Board of Aldermen, Ed and his team. And they're asking these very, very same questions because we do get approached, or even when we're just thinking about good old-fashioned public financing of infrastructure. The mayor mentioned the Green Line story, and when the city was asked to do something unprecedented and contribute $50 million to save the Green Line, and believe you me, that was necessary. That was a life and death decision, and kudos to our Board of Aldermen, to the City of Cambridge, who was asked to do a version of that municipal financing as well as all of our state partners who worked so hard to get that project back where it needed to be. We actually had the same discussion about Commonwealth financing versus municipal financing. And actually, our credit rating and our borrowing rates were better than the Commonwealth's at that time. So ultimately, that informed our recommendation to the Board of Aldermen that the city incur the debt rather than passing that along and repaying the Commonwealth, who would borrow at a higher rate than us. So I don't have a quick or good answer to you, but I would invite you to meet Ed for coffee and kind of chit-chat on the side, because he's been the steward of all the incredible financial reform in the city over the course of 2 or 3 decades.
Brad, if I could, if I could just offer a couple of thoughts. On the public-private partnership side, I think you pose a question that a lot of people ask that are looking at whether public-private partnerships make sense. And what we've been talking to the city about as we've been getting ready for this event is that if you're looking at it just comparing interest rates between private sector money and public sector money, you're kind of missing the whole point of public-private partnerships, because the idea is that the private partner is going to bring a lot more to the table than just its financing source. So what I would offer is that the city is looking for a real partnership with private entities that are going to take a different look at these projects, not just on how they get financed, but how they get delivered. And we're trying to create an environment where both the public and the private sector are incentivized to create better facilities that last longer and are less expensive to maintain over their entire life cycle. So the question is not, why would the City of Somerville use private financing at a higher interest rate? It's why would the City of Somerville partner with a private partner and them collectively deciding on how to move these projects forward? The city's not looking for money to use. They're looking for a private partner to help them re-envision and restructure these projects and do it in an innovative way that benefits everybody. So that's and Ed might have some other thoughts on interest rates and certainly how those costs compare.
Studies that identify X performance gains in construction optimization. Time to delivery was improved by 30%. Those types of KPIs will actually make the difference in saying, yeah, you're going to have a 2% spread on the interest rate, but you get all of this operational excellence back. So
Right. Yeah.
We're at a loss for those numbers right now, and I think that's what will help move the ball forward in our discussion.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
If I could add one quick point to that, the purpose of the showcase was really because the city is here, it has some needs, and it doesn't know what it doesn't know about what industry can deliver. And the industry's out there, and they have solutions and might not have known what the city was looking for. So this is really an opportunity to take that very first step to come together and say, hey, you need this, we want to help you with that. And then you can get into that next step, which is, what does a structure actually look like, and how does it benefit both parties? It may be that there isn't one. It's possible, but we'll never know unless we take that first step. You had a question, sir?
I'm Brad Swing, Director of Energy Policy and Programs at the City of Boston. I want to congratulate Somerville not only for this great event, but for all the great urban building work that is animating it. It's very impressive. Exciting to take the Orange Line from my South End neighborhood over here today. My question is about district energy and specifically the bullet point about Union Square. We're trying to build a district energy microgrid plant in our marine park. We're trying to do it with both quasi-publicly owned and private facilities as opposed to just the single owner campus. So I guess my basic question is whether you're thinking about only municipally owned facilities to anchor your district energy system in that neighborhood, or whether you're trying to think about how to use new legal structures to capture both public and private facilities for district energy.
So why don't I take a stab at answering that first? I think the short answer is we're flexible and open, and sorry to echo the same theme, we're here because we're interested in people's ideas on that. I think there's a lot of different ways that we, from a very high level, imagine district energy serving Union Square. There is a scenario in which actually, the new development that is a mix of commercial, residential, maybe even lab space, is some of that serves as the anchor. We also are thinking about the possibility of a resited public safety building, depending on how far from the Union Square area it is sited, could potentially serve as an anchor. But I think in a lot of our minds, we've come to realize that there's, you know this well, there's two things that we want to keep ourselves open to. One is really making a district system that is open to a mix of customers, and also to have it be sort of fundamentally expandable. So I think while we don't have an answer now on what would be the first phase's anchor load, I think we do know that we envision a system that certainly meets, has public and private customers.
And just to amplify the point that started today's discussion, Mayor Walsh authorized the filing of a home rule petition that's now pending before City Council to seek project-specific permission to issue the procurement to qualify an energy company to do the design for district energy microgrid in our marine park. And we would have to then look at how to create a special purpose entity to pull together the quasi-public and private facilities in that. So long road ahead, but similar issues.
Yes, and we'll be watching, and I just want to say to the folks in the room, we've got a great collaboration going with Boston and Cambridge and some other cities on this sort of microgrids district energy issue. It's been, I think, almost 2 or 3 years that we've been sort of working on a regular basis in different forums and learning from each other. So I think, I hope that we can create a, Boston area, urban Massachusetts model, and, keep replicating it.
To actually, expand upon Oliver's point and integrate with the previous question, I think that's another goal of today. I mean, certainly we've laid out a number of municipal needs, both in terms of space programming, utility, district energy. The larger goal, and particularly in finding sources of funding and partners outside of those pure municipal needs for which we could use our excellent bond rating, is to also integrate with the other needs of the developers, of the developing community, of the private entities that are going to be moving into Somerville. And at the risk of using the hackneyed S word from the 90s, find the synergy between the municipal needs and those private development needs, and find the efficiency by integrating those into larger projects like a district energy or others.
And one last point on that front, Bill, if you don't mind. The city is in the midst of once-in-a-lifetime regulatory reform. We are rewriting the Somerville zoning ordinance from the ground up to actually prescribe what we want as a community, rather than simply try to anticipate every negative land use impact, the way that, kind of the Euclidean zoning that has dominated this country for 100 years has done. And again, thank goodness we got a board of aldermen that's been rolling up their sleeves for already 3 years with us, going through community meeting after community meeting, technical study after technical study. One of the things that's relevant to this question, and when we think about the new investments like partners, like Federal Realty, like our partners at US2 and Union Square, are all contemplating, is that cities like Seattle and Washington, D.C. have used a version of environmental performance standards that provide some flexibility. I think Seattle calls it green factor and D.C. calls it green code or something along those lines. They're essentially point systems, not unlike the LEED certification that everybody's so familiar with, where we would say we don't know every emerging technology that's going to allow you to reduce your environmental footprint, but we expect you to meet certain standards, and if you have a cost-efficient way to do so, we're all ears. So thank goodness, again, we have great staff. George Proakis is one of the best planning directors in the entire country. Dan Bartman, who's writing our form-based code for Somerville, has written form-based codes in 7 or 8 different states around the country. They've been working through community process with all of our local volunteers, experts, and interdepartmental staff, and I think we're going to have a regulatory system now that's a national model that actually incentivizes exactly the kind of collaboration that's been discussed for the last 5 minutes.
I think Sue's giving me the hook. With that, I'll wrap it up. I want to thank everybody very much for the rapt attention you have all given these panelists. Thank you, panelists, for your incredible insights. And with that, Sue, I think I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sue Thomas, or Sinina Thomas. I'm the Senior Economic Development Planner under the Mayor's Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. If we could just give a round of applause to both panelists and both moderators for being here. I also, on behalf of the city, want to thank you all for taking the time to attend this event and also participate in this conversation, especially on some of the projects that we have put forward to you. We're encouraged to see you here so that we're able to sort of possibly push some of these projects forward as we intend. Using the four-step model, can you click it for me? We think that we're making significant progress to at least get halfway to step 2. We think that we're able to, through this showcase, identify the projects that we think could be suited for a P3 delivery. As the next steps, we look forward to evaluating the information we received today and develop a plan to move forward with one or more of these projects. I also want to reiterate the mayor's commitment to exploring these partnerships as a viable delivery method for the city, both traditional capital projects and technology-based initiatives. Like he mentioned, we're open to new ideas and we want to hear your feedback. We want to hear those innovative ideas to actually execute these programs in other ways than the traditional delivery method. Part of the reason that we requested the RFI one-on-one meetings was so that we're able to hear firsthand from you to understand what the feasibilities of some of these projects could be. And with a project, we hope to champion this process and pave the way for municipalities within Massachusetts by exploring the opportunities to seek a home rule petition to pilot a potential P3 project here in Somerville. And with that, it's actually great that we have other municipalities here to have this continued conversation. We are also involved in the community compact, the 6-city community compact, and we encourage to have this continued conversation there so that there's also an opportunity for us to actually join together to push forward that home rule petition for specific projects. So thank you again for coming to this showcase, and we're eager to listen to your feedback we get during this event and on our one-on-one meetings, and to partner with you as we create a comprehensive strategy for our public-private partnership. The PowerPoint, just a few logistics, the PowerPoint presentations will be available online. You already have a website, which is somervillema.gov/P3. We'll continue to update that as we make progress towards this initiative. Tom Galligani and I will be your main point of contact with the city. However, with that said, we've got quite a few. This is probably the first time in a long time that we've got a lot of directors in the same room. So please do take advantage of grabbing their ear and talking about how we're moving forward with some of these projects. And then also, before we leave, I do want to really thank partners for this beautiful facility, and then also a shout out to Matt Erie and his team with Federal Realty for providing the gift cards. And we really hope that you take this opportunity to support our local businesses here and have lunch or shop in Assembly Row. So thank you again, and we hope to have this continued conversation with you all.